Hello folks, it's Abfielder here, back with a quick look at this week's snapshot, which is experimental snapshot number 5 for 1.18. If you need to know how to install experimental snapshots, a little trickier than normal, link for that video is in the top right hand corner. Right, let's jump into it because it's a quick look and there's lots to get through. And this week then, peaks have been made peakier. So mountains and peak biomes are slightly larger in average, and we're heading down a river towards one of those now. We'll talk about it a little bit more in a moment. But as we head down there, we're looking at the river, and that's another change this week. So rivers shouldn't be quite as deep as they were in the previous snapshot, and they also shouldn't cut off as much. So again, two really good changes, particularly that not cutting off as frequently. Now, as I've been exploring, I have seen the odd river that still cuts off, but it is definitely less frequent, which is really good. And then the next thing that I keep looking at as I fly down this river is the waterfalls. And these come from water springs, as Mojang call them. They can now appear in more blocks than they did previously, so you will see more waterfalls and streams coming down the mountains. That's a fantastic change. I've seen a lot of people asking for that. Okay, we are now looking at, well, what looks like a snowy peak, but when I did locate biome, this came back as a lofty peak. This doesn't go above 160, and I'm struggling to find mountains that go above 160, but overall, I would say we are getting slightly higher terrain, but yeah, mountains really, really rare. Let's see if we can find some later in the video. Let's move on to change number 2, which is that apparently swamps have been moved further inland, but well, this is the first one that I've come to, and it's not looking very inland to me at all. I also quite like this area because this is the shattered savanna biome, and people were a little bit unhappy with the changes that were made to the shattered savanna, and I think they brought that back. But I'm not gonna lie, I don't like stuff that just floats in midair. It's not normal, it just doesn't look right, but I think some people will like that. But there's 2 swamps over here, and although the swamp isn't bleeding out into the ocean, which is what they were trying to stop, they don't seem all that inland to me. The second change they made with these is that trees can spawn in slightly deeper water, so they're not quite as barren. And I would say that that change has worked. It's not particularly barren. So 1 out of 2 when it comes to swamp biome changes, in my opinion. Right, let's move on to change number 3 this week. And these structures have made a comeback. I hate to do this to you folks, but 95% of my viewers are not subscribed. Please consider subscribing. Check out my Strangecraft news video. I'll link it in the top right hand corner right now. And that's enough of me begging for subscribers. Let's go on to the Badlands and desert changes this week. So Badlands on average should be slightly smaller. And we're going to fly around this Badland and take a good long look. But I assure you that this is definitely smaller than we saw last week. And whilst we fly around this area, let me talk about the second change that they've made this week. So you get a lot of lakes spawning. Is that one over there? Maybe, not sure. You shouldn't get them in the Badlands and desert biomes. They're obviously hot, dry biomes. You won't really get too many lakes in them. So they shouldn't spawn in deserts or Badlands anymore. So I think 2 good changes. The Badlands, I do like the Badlands biomes, but they are definitely, they were a little bit on the large size, and all the other biomes were a little bit too small. So I think just tweaking that has made it a little bit better. Certainly from that one that we were just looking at. Okay, let's move on to the next clip. And whilst I was trying to find a lofty peak to show you, I found another swamp. And is this inland? Does that count as inland? I guess it kind of does, but it's only just inland. I still think that needs a little bit of tweaking. I mean, definitely they're not as barren because that tree change that they've made, that's definitely working. But yeah, they don't seem to be as inland as I think they probably want. I do like when they're surrounded by this kind of these hills and stuff, and that's another change this week. In flat areas, you should get a few more of the hills and stuff, so it's just not completely featureless. So that was a nice little thing to find there. Right, folks, let's go and see if we can find a lofty peak, because that's what I want to see. And boom, this took a while, but we're up at about Y220. The screen's a little bit small while I'm recording the audio. And this is a lofty peak. This is what I wanted to see. Now, the first thing I have to say about this is that, well, it's incredibly rare. I had to do a huge amount of teleporting to random locations and then locating biomes to find this area. So don't worry if you're thinking, how the hell am I going to navigate this in survival? There are a huge amount of flat areas. This area is incredibly rare, but it is also incredibly amazing. And probably the rarity of it makes it more special if you find it in survival. Just look at the hills and the mountains in this area. This is what I wanted to see in Minecraft 1.18. And we're gonna have a good look around here because this is just amazing. And we get more of these stone lofty peaks up here. You get the cracks down into the caves, which is just awesome. You get a little bit of an overhang there, but not like we saw with the shattered savannah earlier. And look, we're going to be heading into... We've got some more waterfalls there, which again, awesome. Good to see. Got a Badlands behind us. I think this is amazing. And like I say, I think the rarity really helps with this. So we've got some water down there. And it almost looks like there should be a river here, like if it wasn't so high up, but it's actually formed a valley, which I think is a really cool thing to look at. Honestly, folks, what do you think of this area? I think this is amazing. I think this is how and the trees there, I think they add to it as well. I think everything about this is just awesome. If I sound enthusiastic on this bit, it's because I am. I mean, look at the caves down there. Isn't that, I think that's amazing. And we almost have like a Grand Canyon type effect going on over there to the right. And yeah, another lofty peak with, is that some snow or some calcite into it? We're up above the clouds, which is what I want to see with these mountains. I think that's calcite, which I didn't mention last week. I missed it. This is awesome. This is what I wanted to see. I think that's a very good area to end the video on. Folks, if you enjoyed this video, consider ticking like. Let me know down in the comments what you enjoyed about the new terrain and the video as well. And as I said earlier, please consider subscribing to the channel. Folks, I'm Abfielder. That's all I have time for. Goodbye.